Hey guys, Chris Adams here with RVA Returners, back for another Blitz Tech. This is number 7 in our series, and this comes from our buddy Ryan Galloway. He gave us a spicy Earth Fire list, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. Alright guys, this is Ryan's Earth Fire summons list, and pretty much the main theme of this deck is to use Ajito Marujito to be able to play these higher cost summons for free to really swing the game in his favor. And you'll see how that kind of breaks down with the summon selection, the forward selection, as well as his selection of backups. All right, so we're going to start by breaking down the forwards. We're going to look at what I think are the 3 most important forwards in the deck, and that's Delita, Firion, and Guy. We have 2 copies of Delita in here, 3 copies of Firion, as well as 3 copies of Guy. Delita and Firion are important because of their ability to enable multiple uses out of Ajito. Delita being able to, having to break a character when he comes into play, and Firion having an ability to break a backup to give him first strike and brave. And the reason Guy is important is by him being out, he reduces Firion's cost by 2, and he also gets an additional 1,000 power from Firion being in play. So essentially for 5 mana, you're getting 2 8Ks on the board and being able to get multiple uses or clear your backup line as you see fit. The next group of forwards we're going to look at are what I consider your auto includes, and that's 3 copies of Wall, 3 copies of Dataluma, and 3 copies of Vivi. Wall being important because he makes combat on your turn absolutely favorable by being able to remove the threat of EX Burst, being able to give something Brave, or being able to give something an additional 2,000 power. Then you have Dataluma, who is just such a brick wall against a lot of decks and a lot of matchups by being able to 2-for-1, sometimes 3-for-1 your opponent. And then, of course, Vivi, who's probably one of the best pieces of removal Fire has to offer. And, of course, he can pull double duty as a chump blocker after his ability goes off. And, of course, rounding out the forwards, we have our utility options, and that's 1 copy of Camelot, 2 copies of Vermilion Bird Lassie Zhou, and 1 copy of Caius. Camelot there primarily for color fixing, being able to search out a copy of Chaos, and there just to be an all-around brick wall against monocolored decks. We also have Vermilion Bird Lassie in there for just kind of a finisher. He's there to be able to attack multiple times and make things awkward as your opponent gets to 4, 5, and 6 damage. Him being able to take care of something with a Hecaton Chair during combat will enable his ability so he can attack multiple times. And then, of course, Caius is there to search a Bahamut out of your deck. And this kind of coincides with Ajito Marujito, playing Caius, being able to grab the 9 CP Bahamut, and then on the following turn play Ajito, and then playing the Bahamut for free should just be enough to put you over on the game. Alright, now moving into our summons. Our summons suite is pretty straightforward. We have 3 copies of Hecaton Chair, probably the best combat trick in the game, and a really good combo with Vermilion Bird Zhou. Then we have 3 copies of Bahamut. Can really handle a threat. This will get rid of Emperor, not just put him in the break zone, but removing something from the game. This card also plays very well with the Vermilion Bird K-Tuna backup by being able to be played for free and potentially doing an additional 1,000 damage. And then we have 1 copy of Cactuar. This could potentially get up to about 16k damage with Chaos and Shantoto on the board being able to act as different colors, so being able to pay with 4 separate colors for this thing will really put it over the top. Alright, and the last 2 summons we're going to look at here are our payoff summons, and these are the ones you're going to want to be casting off of Ajito Marujito for free. We're going to look at Phoenix first. We're running 3 copies. This is a summon that does 8,000 damage to a forward and allows you to get a forward of cost 3 or less from your break zone and put it back into play dull. What you can get out of this is being able to bring Vivi back to potentially 2-for-1, getting back Guy to allow Firion to be played at a reduced cost. Also getting back Delita to break one of your backups, particularly maybe break the Ajito you just played so you can repeat that play on the next turn. And then you also have 9 CP Bahamut. This card is kind of your finisher. Being able to do 10,000 damage to 2 forwards and removing them from the game sometimes is just enough to win you the game by clearing out 2 potential blockers. And it's also worth noting that both of these summons do receive the additional 1,000 power, 1,000 damage buff from Vermilion Bird K-Tuna. So sometimes it's enough to get over any threat. All right, now moving into Ryan's backup selection, we're going to start with 3 copies of Illusionist. This card's really neat because it can create a really awkward situation for your opponent by forcing one of their people to attack into one of your bigger forwards. Like maybe they have a larger guy and you force them to attack into your Dodaluma for the trade, or you force them into a Vivi so he can chump block, or maybe they're holding back a smaller guy that there's a lot of options here. I think the card is really neat, and it does potentially remove a blocker on the next turn. Next, we have 2 copies of Monk. This one adding 2,000 power to a forward you control, potentially to get you over your opponent, and it is 1 CP cheaper than the Monk that gives plus 3k in Brave. So maybe it's a good option if you're looking to not expend as much mana. Then we're also running 2 copies of Mitsuki. Just being able to choose a forward and deal it 1,000 damage on top of all these pingy effects that we have could be make the difference between us forward living or dying. And then we also have Summoner. That's just when a forward receives damage, you increase that damage by 1,000. So kind of similar to Mitsuki, but this one just is a straight tap to break itself. All right, the next backups we're going to look at here are Chaos. We're running 1 copy that is searchable by Camelot. And then we're also running 2 copies of Star Sibyl, which kind of enables the Chaos to be searched, because you can use Star Sibyl to search for Camelot, which will let you search for Chaos, or you can use Star Sibyl to search for your 1 copy of Shantoto. And Shantoto's obviously there just as a fail-safe in case things get too hairy and your opponent's able to overwhelm the board, kind of giving you that reset as she is very known to do. So we're going to finish off looking at his deck by taking a look at what I think are the 2 most important backups in the deck, and that's Vermilion Bird Lassie K-Tuna and Ajido Marujido. We're running 2 copies of each. The reason they're the most important is these are the ones that are allowing you to play your summons for free, which is kind of the main theme of the deck. Vermilion Bird Lassie is allowing you to get a fire summon out of your deck that costs 4 or less. In this case, it's Bahamut, and being able to cast it for free. And it also adds an additional 1,000 damage to that summon. So now, granted, not only is that summon getting an additional 1,000 power, while she's on the field, your Phoenixes are also doing 9k, and your 9 CP Bahamuts are also doing 11k. And then you're kind of getting that same value out of Ajido Marujido. You're primarily using that card to play your Phoenixes and Bahamuts for free. And then also what you're looking to do with these are your targets that you want to break with cards like Furion and Delita. Because being able to repeat those plays multiple times is something you're going to want to try to do just to abuse these triggers that they have. And it'll just pretty much keep your opponents from being able to stick any forwards on the board. But also Ajido has that other ability where you can recycle 2 summons from your break zone, put them back into your hand, which could also be really good recycling your Hecaton chairs for use with Vermilion Lassie Zhou. Him being able to potentially attack 3 or 4 times a turn just may be enough to win out of nowhere. All right, now that we've taken a look at Ryan's deck, let's go ahead and look at some of the changes we've implemented. And right off the bat, you'll notice we cut the 2 cards and replaced them with more of a Final Fantasy VI focus. We've also added a 3rd copy of Delita, cut Birdman down to 1, and removed Caius completely. As far as the summons go, we've kept that pretty much the same, other than the 1 Cactuar, because we just felt that it felt a little clunky in the deck. And then as far as the backups go, we've replaced Mitsuki and Summoner with Sage. We've cut Monk for Mog Mobius, and we've added a 3rd copy of Ajido Marujido. Now we'll go into a little bit more in depth about those changes. So like I said, the biggest change to the forward line was removing Guy and Furion and replacing that with a Final Fantasy VI package consisting of Cyan, Sabin, and Shadow. Cyan is there to give Sabin Shadow as well as Dodaluma Brave, and having access to Bushido Fang is just a really neat main phase 2 trick on your opponent's turn to remove a threat. Sabin being the best aggressive card in the game and probably the best fire forward you can have access to. Also, having him in a deck where you can run Hecaton Chair while he's attacking seems almost unfair, because it's pretty much like a backup Raubon at that point. And then you have Shadow. Shadow is really neat when you have Illusionist in your backup line. Having him back as a blocker and forcing someone to swing into him with his ability and him having first strike, that's going to be bad news if your opponent decides not to attack. They're going to have to think twice before they leave somebody back. Shadow just being a great blocker and an all-around underutilized forward. And finally, the last change we're going to talk about here is to the backup line. We removed Mitsuki, Summoner, and Monk and replaced it with 2 copies of Mog Mobius and 3 copies of Opus 4 Sage. Mog Mobius in the deck primarily to search out whatever forwards you need when you need it. And Opus 4 Sage is there to enhance some of your combat tricks, or just some of your ATB triggers, like Vivi being able to do more damage when he comes in, Wall being able to do 5k to a dull forward, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, those are the changes. That is Earth, Fire, Summons. So let us know what you think. Tell us in the comments what changes you would make or what cards you'd like to see, and any suggestions for a future deck tech. As always, thanks for listening.